if the caregiver is in a highly dysregulated state in utero, you'll get cortisol literally passing through the placenta, and this is now going to negatively impact whatever structures are evolving at that time. What is transmitted here is not only the trauma itself, but the defenses against the trauma. So now you have an individual who will be highly prone to dissociation at later points in life, and that is one of the great indicators of whether a person will go into traumatic stress at later points in life if they habitually characterologically dissociate here.
Yeah, now we're getting down to the business at hand, current Jehovah's Witnesses. You just heard the voice of Dr. Alan Shore, an American psychologist and researcher in the field of neuropsychology and psychoanalysis. And in that 43-second clip, he spoke volumes, something I've innately known for the last several years. And that is, current Jehovah's Witness mom, expecting mom, you can pass down trauma regardless if it's physical, psychological, mental, emotional. You can pass that trauma down to your fetus and impede their development. And in speaking in terms of the Jehovah's Witness organization, we know without a shadow of a doubt that their ideological poison is nothing but emotional trauma. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the JW Free Podcast. My name is James. I am your host. And I want to say one more thing about Dr. Alan Shore. In my introduction of him, I used the word researcher. And I know for you Jehovah's Witnesses, the word research is a horrible abomination of a word. It is abhorrent to you. It is detestable to Jehovah. This is what you've let your governing body convince you of. So I want to read something to you, and I'm going to do a couple of readings today, and you guys just bear with me. But this first thing I'm going to read to you, based on that last statement about research, is actually a post I put up a couple of days ago. So here we go. Quote, the other day I heard someone say, and I'm paraphrasing, the new illiterate are those who refuse to unlearn the old way of thinking. And for whatever reason, it led me to this thought. Those mentally illiterate people's refusal to adjust means you will always be a source of income for those who are selling you their lies, Jehovah's Witnesses, as well as those who are trying to help you see the lie, the apostates. At this point, the sides don't matter. What matters is everybody sees the game but you, end quote. And all I'm simply saying is it is time for you to stop trying so hard not to know something. This part of history isn't going away. The information is going to inundate you until you acquiesce. There's nothing you can do about it. You can continue trying, and only thing that's going to happen to you is you're just going to wither away in misery, trying to hold on to ideologies that are hurting you, and not just you, Mom, but now your baby. You are blocking their development by passing down this trauma. And if you know anything, if you've been listening to my podcast, even if it's just been for a couple of weeks, you know there are certain things that I repeat over and over. And the reason for that is just as much as repetition is good for indoctrination, repetition is also good for change and for healing and starting anew. So it can be used both ways. But let's get into it today. I want to piggyback off of last week's discussion where we talked about, you know what, Mom and Dad, we don't want a lifetime of healing. We don't want it. We don't want it. Especially for these born-ins, people like me. I was actually, like I told you before, I was the first in my family as a fetus to get the Jehovah's Witness poison. Yeah, I'm going to call it that. And you can, it may seem one-sided to you because it is. It is one-sided on this podcast. We're not going to pretend that there are a bunch of positives coming out of this, because anytime you systematically reprogram someone for failure, you've reprogrammed the modules in their brain to work against itself, you rewired their nervous system for fear, nothing good is coming out of that. Not a single thing. The only thing that's coming out, like I told you last week, is a lifetime of healing. Now, the question today is this: who were you before the trauma? And if you were born in like me, if you were a born in who not only got the Jehovah's Witness trauma, but other traumas on top of that, you have no fucking answer to that question. You have no idea who the original person was. Why? Because the man just told you the development of the fetus was compromised because of the emotional trauma my mother passed down. Your mother passed down. So there's no way early on you can answer that question. When I was a kid, I always felt like a zombie. I was already disconnected from myself. Dissociation is what the word he used earlier. I didn't know to call it that at the time, of course not. But I never felt like I would look at when I was at school, and I would look at kids, and they would all seem to be pretty confident in who they were. And not to say that other kids didn't experience trauma, but they just seemed to, have no problem being who they were. I always felt odd and like an alien, and like I really just didn't belong. But, you ultimately, that blank feeling is the disconnection. Out the gate. Out the gate, mom and dad. You've disconnected your kids. And let me stop right here. For those of you who are not witnesses, think about this for just a second. Think about what I just said to you. You've given your kid nothing but negativity, reinforced 3, 4, 5 days a week at the Kingdom Halls talking about death and destruction and Armageddon, while the kid is a fetus till he's about 18 years old. So almost 20 years, right? Where I come from, around about 18, somewhere 18 to 20. It's time for you to get your stuff and go figure your life out. So for 20 years, from a fetus, from conception, this is what you are feeding the mind of your child. When you do that, it's ingrained. All that negativity is ingrained in your kid. And if you don't believe me, I told you I was going to do a little reading today. I'm going to give you something else. I'm going to read a couple paragraphs. I usually don't do that much, but I'm just trying to drive a point home. Okay, and of course I'll put the link in the description. But the title of the article is called "Trauma Can Start in the Womb." I want you to see that I'm getting this from multiple sources. Okay, trauma can start in the womb. TheGuesthouseOcala.com. OCALA. TheGuesthouseOcala.com. Quote: "A growing and developing fetus is completely dependent upon the mother within whom it resides. Attached by the umbilical cord, a fetus receives air, food, water, and whatever else a mother digests, which is why a mother who abuses drugs or alcohol does a great deal of damage to her offspring. Sustenance and chemical input are not the only things a fetus receives from their mother. The fetus is also extremely sensitive to how a mother is feeling emotionally, what is going on in her internal environment, as well as happening in her external environment. Just as born individuals are affected by everything they experience in life, the budding form of a fetus is already being impacted by everything they are experiencing, though they aren't grown yet. Trauma doesn't necessarily have to occur to the mother for it to occur to the fetus in the traditional idea of trauma. Guilt, shame, stress, toxic emotional trauma can and often does compute into the growing fetus's genetic makeup without a say or an ability to contest. Emotionally traumatic experiences are transmitted to the fetus and coded in the very fiber of their being." End quote. You got an argument? Does Jehovah have an argument for this? Current Jehovah's Witnesses? Here's the deal. I do this from time to time with you guys. Go ahead and pray tonight or in the morning. When and however you pray. And you ask your Jehovah, and you ask your Jesus, and you ask your Holy Spirit, is this what he is sanctioning? since he's got a big religion with his name plastered all across it, and you guys are the only ones that talk to Jehovah, go ahead and pray and ask him, is this okay? Yeah, I told y'all, you're not going to get away with hiding and your cognitive dissonance and all that stuff. That's over. It's going to be in your face until you make the right decision or wither away. Ask your Jehovah, is this okay? And then come back in here and talk to us. Tell us what your answer was. First and foremost, you're not going to get an answer. Second, I promise you, if there's a God floating around the sky, he's not going to tell you this is okay. This is not okay. Make sure you read the article. Make sure you read it and go down the rabbit hole after that so you can figure out just exactly what you are doing to your children. You want to know why the governing body tells these congregations and the elders, when you leave the congregation and you have some troubles and you fail a little bit, is because you left Jehovah? No, it's not because you left Jehovah. You have that hard time because the governing body knows what I just let you hear in that opening audio. The governing body knows this. There is no multi-billion-dollar corporation in operation without having some sort of a research and development team. That way they know what to sell you and what not to, what's going to keep you coming back and what's going to send you away, building you up, giving you encouragement and feeding your soul and research. All that stuff will make you walk away from the organization. But if they tell you Jehovah's going to kill everybody and they put all this negativity in your mind, it's bound more often than not to keep you coming back. Again, they've rewired your nervous system for fear. And what I am saying to you is they are aware of this information. That's one of the things that makes this company so despicable, is they are aware of the people that they're breaking and making millions of dollars. If the company's making billions, current Jehovah's Witnesses, those governing bodies, I promise you, are making millions. They're not building any more Kingdom Halls. Where's all this money going? Where's it going? All your free labor, everything you've done, including sacrificing your babies. Do you know how many, we can't even guess, how many brilliant life changers were probably born into the Jehovah's Witness organization but were ruined at birth because of this poison? If your Jehovah's okay with this, I would rather worship the devil. Sounds controversial. I'm just trying to make a point across. What kind of God you think you serving where this is okay? Where you break the very thing. You break the very thing. You break the very thing that you made perfectly. There is no room. There is no use for that. So either God sucks or the governing body sucks. We've covered this in detail, but let's continue on. The reason you don't know who you are, born-ins, or it took you forever to figure out who you were, is because there was no point of reference. For some people, as an example, if you have a couple who joined the Jehovah's Witness organization and they have a 10-year-old kid, that kid had 10 years to develop their core, who they are, and develop, assuming all things went well, the way they were supposed to. So once the Jehovah's Witness ideological poison happens and that trauma occurs in their minds, and God forbid additional traumas happen on top of that, which is not uncommon, when they get older and they start going to counseling and start trying to figure things out, their counselor can take them back to age 10 and before and give them a place of reference.